Okay, let's run.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks! What are you?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to content creators of all shapes and sizes that join us from any and all corners of the nerd universe. We find out more about them by taking your questions. I am your host, Ryan of Nerd Culture, and our guest on this episode is indie comic writer and creator. Please welcome Charles W. Morgan to the stage. Hello, Charles. How are you?
Hello out there. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing well, fine, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, if you have any questions for Charles W. Morgan as we go throughout the course of this episode, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Our producer is going to be monitoring it as we go throughout the course of this program. And don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. In the meantime, Charles, when were you introduced to the world of comics?
Yeah, so probably about the ripe age of about 6 or 7, my uncle gave us a box of comic books. And I wasn't really reading that much at that point. You know, you're kind of reading, but you're kind of, you know, you're more visual. So I was looking through these comic books, and I believe I was exposed to Jack Kirby in the titles of a book called Commandy. And there were a lot of issues of Commandy. So, you know, being that young, you know, I was more into children's books at the time. So a few years later, I kind of revisited the comic books, you know, and that's when it kind of caught on with me.
All right. Aside from Jack Kirby, any other favorite comic book writers or artists, past or present?
Oh, sure. So, you know, after Jack Kirby, on the artist side is actually John Buscema. So a lot of his Avengers, Thor books, things like that. Of course, Conan through the 80s. You know, I was a huge Conan fan. And I think he drew about 1 million issues of Conan the Barbarian back in the 80s. I think he probably did like a 15-year run on that. And, you know, so then after that, of course, was Frank Miller and Joe Rubenstein on the 82 Wolverine miniseries. That just was really one of the most influential pieces of art in the comics that I'd seen up to that point. And then later on, John Byrne's run on the X-Men and also Fantastic Four. So that puts us about middle 80s, which may be a little farther back, Ryan, than you are. You know, we're into. I'm not sure.
It's all right. Generations learn from other generations. It's not a big deal. I do know some of those names, yes. I may not know all of them yet, but I'm getting there. I'm learning. I've only been reading comic books 7 years, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting there. But even though it's going to take me billions of years to read everything. But even so, I digress. So with that being said, what would you say are some of your favorite comic book-based movies or TV series, past or present?
Comic book-based TV series, Incredible Hulk from 1978. I think it ran through 83. There was a Spider-Man TV series. Of course, you know, you look back at the Spider-Man TV series now. Of course, you know, there's not good effects there, so it's kind of a little bit on the hokey side, you know. But at the time, it was pretty cool. Of course, you know, the Batman Dark Knight Returns movie. Of course, Superman from 1980. You know, the 3 movies they made of Superman. And then, of course, later on, all the stuff that's came out from Marvel and DC over the last decade and a half has really been pretty good, most of it.
Yeah, Marvel has a formula. It's worked for them for a number of years. Sometimes those would say that formula is getting tiresome. I'm going to move on and do something else. Doesn't have to be the same formula every single flipping movie. But hey, that's a story for another day entirely. But good picks. I recently just sat down and watched the 1970s Incredible Hulk TV series with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. Really good stuff. Gotta say, for a show that's, you know, going back a few decades, it holds up. It's pretty good. I dug it.
Mhm.
It's good stuff. And as far as the situation you brought up with, what was it? It was about the Superman movies. There were actually 4 Superman movies from 1978 to 1987, but we don't remember Superman 3 and 4. So
Mhm. Right.
for a
They
number of
weren't as
reasons.
good. Yeah, they weren't as good, and the first 2 really knocked it out of the park for me. I think most people would agree.
I mean, John Williams, come on, that score, oh,
Mhm.
holds up. No matter
Amazing.
what people say, it's
Amazing.
always going to hold up, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Anyone who says otherwise, you're just fooling yourself, honestly. But when did you decide to become an indie comic book writer?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So I had I always wanted to be a comic artist, and I've always had a story in my head that I wanted to do. And so I've always kind of known I want to do my own book. So I set out to start writing a book about, I guess it was 2020, maybe 2019, but I already had done some storyboards, and I had done a few pages before that, but I just didn't have a story yet. I didn't have the complete, like, where the story would go. But I knew the characters I wanted to do. I knew what basically I wanted to do. So probably around 2020, I started really writing everything out and started putting it on paper, and writing some scripts, and started working on issue 1 on the art, on the storyboarding. Because basically what we do is we're storytellers. So from that standpoint, I began working on putting the storyboards together before I actually started working on the Bristols, the full size pages.
Impressive, most impressive. That's interesting stuff. So, what would you say are some of the rewards about being an indie comic book writer or artist?
Well, I believe being an indie comic writer or artist, you kind of got freedom to do what you want to do. You can write the story you want to write. You can pretty much do what you want. You can make it look how you want. There's really nobody telling you what to do. It's just you and your imagination. And you may be limited by your own abilities to a certain extent, but at least you got the freedom to kind of do what you intend to do.
So, in the words of a fictional character from the 90s, freedom. Anyway, sorry, there's a reference that goes back a little ways.
Yeah.
But opposite side of the fence, what are some of the biggest challenges about being an indie comic book writer or artist?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is trying to come out with a book, not too far spaced out, especially when you're doing the writing and the art, and you're just trying to do a book that stays fairly relevant. You don't want to take a year between issues. So the first book, it took me quite a while to do. Second book, I said, I can't go that long between. So I think we did about 5 to 6 months between number 1 and number 2. So I feel like if I can space it 5 to 6 months between the issues, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. Another thing is marketing, trying to get yourself out there, trying to market your product, trying to be seen, social media, things like that, just trying to be out there. So one of the things is like coming on your show, it's part of that. And I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, we're more than happy to have you. And once again, we are here with Charles W. Morgan of Cold Kutter, I should say, here on this episode of And I Quote. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for Charles during any portion of this program, whether you're joining this live or on the replay, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Be more than happy to hear or take those questions from you and bring them up on screen, read them out loud. We'll get them answered to the best of our ability, and we'll have a good time. So let's go with that, shall we? So just out of curiosity, though, if someone wants to be an indie comic writer or artist, I should say, excuse me, what are some pieces of advice you would offer them?
As an artist, I would say just draw, learn all you can. Just make sure that you've got, if you're still a student of the art, make sure you try to do what your teacher tells you to do. Just try to learn to do the best you can, and then to draw correctly, just get all your fundamentals first, and then just put your work out there and just try to submit it out to different small publishers, even the big ones. Just try to put together a good portfolio and some good art samples, and just different styles, different characters.
Good ones. Definitely good pieces of advice. Now, little sources close to me tell me that you're a fan of, and before we get to your series that's currently blowing up the interwebs, and for good reason. I mean, I never heard of a series called Cold Kutter. That's one for the ages, but we'll get to that in a moment. I'm just curious, what are some of your favorite things about the Western genre?
My favorite things about the Western genre is the visuals. You got a character, and they're usually pretty manly, and they wear a hat and they got a gun and a long coat, and they ride a horse, right? So you got the visuals. Usually it's in a desert town, out in a desert, so everything's barren, and you just get that feeling that these people are just barely surviving, and there's usually a gunfight, and that's always the favorite part.
Well, who doesn't love a good shootout at the OK Corral? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's an actual event that happened, and not a lot of good things came from that. But with that being said, I do want to share something with you who may be watching or listening to this, as well as our guest, Charles W. Morgan. You're doing a series that is blowing up the interwebs, and for good reason. It's called Cold Kutter. So how did this series come about, and what exactly is Cold Kutter?
Okay, so Cold Kutter is a crime noir series, crime noir thriller. It's a modern take on the classic crime noir. So if you look back at the comic strips of the 50s, 40s, and 50s, there was a lot of crime noir comic strips in the newspapers that were beautifully drawn by Stan Drake and Alex Raymond, a few others. But that was really a popular genre, and I thought, I really love this genre. I'd love to make a comic book series. And so I was kind of thinking about the visuals I was telling you about, mixed with the crime noir visuals. I thought, it'd be kind of cool to kind of mix those two together a little bit. So this is kind of like, this is Dylan Cutter here in this picture. And this is his set of wheels, and that's his love interest there on the top of the car, shooting the gun. So, but the title Cold Kutter, I was kind of thinking about, a title for the book. I want it to be something catchy. So I thought about, you got crime and detective stories and cold cases. So I thought, hey, cold, that might work, And then, of course, his last name is Cutter. So I came up with that name, Cold Kutter.
Interesting stuff. I'm digging it. So, have there been any special memories for you from being at conventions or other events, whether you're there as a vendor or there as an attendee?
Special memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to meet some of my childhood artist heroes. So, like Joe Rubenstein, and I met him, and I actually am I kind of pupil under him in art and inks and things like that, and he's taught me a lot. And then, I've met quite a few. I've met Mike Grell, Jim Starlin, just a whole host of them. Bob McLeod. I was talking to Bob McLeod last summer at Heroes Con. And he's got this book about storytelling, because we were talking about my book and storytelling, things like that. And he showed me his book on storytelling. And I was like, you know what? I think I'd like to get that book, because it's just right down your alley for anything I can learn to improve on and things like that. I'm all for it. So I picked up a book on that, and he's really excellent as far as storytelling goes. And so that kind of stands out to me, you know.
All right. Excellent stuff. And thank you for sharing that with us. Where do you see the future of indie comics going in the next 5 years?
The future of indie comics next 5 years. It's a good question. I think we might be on the precipice of the indie comics explosion. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the mainstream stuff today, it's just not like it was, back in the 80s and 90s. There's some good stuff, but I just don't think that, I think there's just a lot of the same old. But with indie comics, there's all kinds of genres, all kinds of stories being told, and there's no restrictions as far as, hey, we can't do that, or, because, the bigger corporations, they're ran by larger conglomerates and parent corporations. And, so there's a limit probably to what they want to put their dollar behind. And, I think with the indie comics though, you got a lot more opportunity to just read a lot of new ideas. And that's the main thing.
Totally. I mean, in the last few years, we've seen a number of up and comers rise to the occasion, lots of Kickstarters out there. And that's another thing too. It's another way of getting indie comics out there is through Kickstarter. But at the same time, Kickstarter is a very crowded marketplace because there's so many different creative teams that are putting things together on Kickstarter. So it's kind of hard to decide where do you want to contribute your money to? Do you want to contribute it to this campaign? Do you want to do it to that? So do you feel Kickstarter can be overwhelming at times for audiences?
I think it could be, because there's a lot of campaigns on. I've ran 2 Kickstarters, within a year, and did pretty well with the first one. Second one, wasn't quite as strong, but I feel like the economy may have played into that some, so, there is a lot of content. There's different platforms besides just Kickstarter, but I haven't really looked into, to trying to do a lot of other stuff as far as, the crowdfunding.
So for someone who wants to get their stuff out there via Kickstarter, what's the best piece of advice you can offer them?
Yeah, so I would try to talk to someone that's already ran a campaign, definitely, because you're gonna need some help, just kind of knowing what to do to build your page. You just need to get a little help with it. Just talk to some people that's ran campaigns, get their advice, kind of see what worked, see what didn't work, see what they would have done differently. So I mean, because you definitely want to have a movie trailer. So if you try to launch a Kickstarter campaign without a little movie trailer, they say it's not as successful. That's what a lot of people have told me that's ran a lot of campaigns. So you try to do that, and for sure you want to have some good graphics on it, and just
I got you. So in other words, kick tail and take names, go big or go home, like the NBA.
That's right. You got to put it in there. You got to do the best you can.
Yeah. Well, as they say on television, you only miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
yeah,
I heard that somewhere. But once again, we are here with the incredible Charles W. Morgan on this episode of And I Quote. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for him, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. And if you are joining this live or on the replay, thank you for being with us. We do greatly appreciate it. With that being said, I do want to let you know that this episode and every episode of And I Quote is indeed powered by our good friends over there at Poddex. Now, Poddex, check this out. Our unique interview questions as well as episode starting prompts in the palm of your hand. So whether you are a new podcaster or existing broadcaster looking to grow your audience or get more engagement, you're going to want to check out our friends over there at poddex.com. Use the code Ryan10, that's RYAN10, Ryan10 for 10% off your first order. You're not going to want to miss out on that opportunity. So, Charles, Poddex wants to know, what is something you like that most people don't?
That's a pretty interesting question. I wasn't ready for that one. What do I like that most people don't? Boy, well, maybe asparagus.
Oh boy, that's a name. That's a name of an item I haven't heard in a long time. A long time.
Yep.
But listen, we digress. What's the worst job you've ever had?
Probably flipping burgers at a fast food chain. That's probably the worst job.
Any? Is there a certain name of this fast food chain that we may be aware of, or you choose not to name this business? It's okay if you don't want to name it. Don't call it out. You don't have to.
Okay, I won't call them out.
All right. We can talk about it in the green room. I'm sorry. I gotta know this.
Yeah.
So on the other side of that, though, if you had to teach a class on one thing, what would you teach?
Wow, that's a good one too. Well, if I could just anything I wanted to teach, right? Just anything.
Yeah, it could be anything you want, anything at all.
A class on drawing comics. That's what I teach it on. I might not be a very good teacher, but it'd be enjoyable.
All right, rock on, man. That's a good choice. What's one bad habit you're trying to get rid of?
That's a good one too. I think one bad habit I'm trying to get rid of is pulling through too many drive-throughs and for lunch. So, when you're trying to lose a few pounds, that's a good habit to get rid of.
Yep, you can take the person out of the fast food chain that they used to work at, but you can't take the fast food chain out of the person. So,
exactly.
Depends on how you look at it, I guess. I mean, one of the slogans we're so used to hearing on the whether it's the interwebs or television sets is, "When you have it your way, it just tastes better." Or maybe you sing a little tune to yourself and you're thinking, "I'm loving it." Could be anything. I don't know.
I caught that.
See, that's all right. We're catching on to our references here. You're pulling you're pulling a team cap on me. I understood that reference. Yeah, good stuff. So, what are you currently curious about? And this could be anything in the world, anything at all.
Well, this is a random question. Currently curious about.
Well, pod decks, they don't mess around, Charles.
Yeah, so I'm that's interesting. I might have to come back to that one.
All right, you can always come back to that one in a minute. That's not a biggie. Well, let's see if this one will get something rolling here. When you think about success, who comes to your mind and why?
That's interesting. There's a lot of writers and comic artists that come to mind, since that's what we're here to discuss. I think of Frank Miller. He's been pretty successful in his comic book career.
There you go. All right, Frank Miller. Yes, I know who that is, and yes, I believe. I'm trying to think if I'm remembering this. Excuse me, correctly. I think I've read one of his books, maybe two of them. I can't remember exactly. I got to go back and check my reading list on Goodreads. Which, if anyone wants to feel the need to follow me on all the stuff I've been reading as of late or in the past, look me up on Goodreads. It's a good site for people to find books and other great things to read. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Sounds good.
if anyone is curious, I'm just throwing it out there. But hey, that's neither here nor there. Well, Charles W. Morgan, we want to take this opportunity to say thank you for being with us on this episode of And I Quote. This has been a treasure, if I do say so myself, partner. So thank you so much for being here. Greatly appreciate it. Where can the individual who may be watching or listening to this follow you on social media and everything that you have coming up?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Facebook at The Art of Charles W. Morgan. You can see what we're doing and keep up with our progress on the book, on Cold Kutter #3, which should be going to Kickstarter this spring, probably April or May of 2024. And I'll have updates on there. Also, Instagram, I think it's CharlesWMorgan.5 on Instagram, I think is it. I think that's pretty much it right now. So as far as the social media sites, we are working on a website for 4-Speed Studios. So hopefully in the near future, you'll be able to go to a website and buy a product off of there, as well as keep track of what's going on with us.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Charles W. Morgan, for being here. I'm going to be talking to you again here in just a moment. My name is Ryan of Nerd Culture. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. Check out all the wonderful stuff we got going on here, because I want to let you in on something. And Charles W. Morgan's probably going to get a kick out of this. So we're on our way. We're on the road again to hitting 1,000 subscribers. Once we do, we're going to throw a great big live stream celebration that's going to include returning favorites, some surprise guests, and some special giveaways that you will be eligible to win, our incredible fans/subscribers. So tell your friends about us, because they're going to tell their friends and so on. You know how these things go. And if you're curious, what are special giveaways exactly? What are those items that we may be giving? Well, our good friend, The Art of John Pinto on Instagram and Facebook, has these lovely prints that we want to give away to you. Look at that. Oh my. Yeah. See what I did there? Yeah, there's a reference for you. So you got some Star Trek Strange New World characters here on this print. Once again, this is done by John Pinto on Facebook and Instagram, The Art of John Pinto. And a trailer that just dropped recently for this property. Look at this bad boy. Woo! Yeah. Hello, sweetie. If you're a fan of the Who of Doctor Who, look at all those doctors there, Charles. Oh my gosh, look at all them doctors. So if you want to win this bad boy and have it sent over to you, we got to reach 1,000 subscribers. So tell everyone you know about us, because we got more where that came from. I'm just saying. Also, Charles and I were talking about Westerns earlier in this episode of And I Quote, and we're going to be doing a Westerns celebration on Friday night, October the 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, hosted by myself and Lori Calcaterra of Paths of the Pale Rider. Yahoo! Yeah, saddle up, partner. Yeah. So we're going to be celebrating all things Western. That includes movies, TV series, books, comic books, all your favorite things about the Western genre. We're going to celebrate it, and we're going to discuss it right here at Nerd Culture. Also, Ahsoka's finale is going to be dropping next week. So on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, that's when we're going to be talking about the latest episodes of Ahsoka that are currently streaming on Disney+. Also, brand new podcast series we're going to be doing is called The Meaning of Fandom, where we gather together a round table of special guests each and every episode, different guests every episode, and they're going to be describing to us what a specific fandom or a specific character within that fandom means to them and why. So those details are coming very, very soon. Also, the gentleman who composed the soundtrack of the 90s to TV shows that we grew up on, us 90s kids. Sorry, Charles, I may be dating you a little bit here, but I'm sorry. But hey, Ron Wasserman's going to be in the building, guys, and he composed the hit songs to Power Rangers, X-Men, VR Troopers, Dragon Ball Z, and a whole bunch of other known properties. So if you want to chime in with that and throw in some of your questions for Ron Wasserman, that's going to be on Saturday, October 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter pages. So make sure you're following us across all forms of social media, and you can be a part of the show. And whether you are joining us live or on the replay, thank you. No matter what, we thank you for checking out our content and enjoying it and sharing it with all your friends. In the meantime, like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that bell to be notified of when our videos go up or they go live. And remember, life is better when reading. Take a look.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Sweet dreams deep In the summer of 1953, private investigator Will Lucky Marks was working as the in-house private eye for Arcane Pacific Pictures. Trapped inside the studio with the killer, Lucky must find the killer before time runs out. Lot 28. Own it today. Available iTunes and Amazon.com.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now, it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasmafire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasmafire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
Good morning! Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.